So let's talk about cocoa production. Nigeria is talking about diversifying to agriculture. We're the fourth largest cocoa producer in the world and one of the biggest names in West Africa. But we've got quite a lot of issues to deal with, which is putting agriculture in our Agric industrialization and exports drive. So let's talk to Adeyemi Adeniji, who is an expert in the cocoa industry. He is the Managing Director and CEO of Starlink Global and Ideal Limited. Is live to us from our studios in downtown Lagos at the Stock Exchange. Good morning, Adeyemi Adeniji. Thank you so much, sir, for coming through.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. It's good to have you. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time because we understand you cocoa stakeholders are having kind of a summit in Lagos at the moment. So we thank you very much for allowing us to pull you out of that conference to speak to us on this very important issue. So what is the current state of cocoa production in Nigeria at the moment?
Well, today we are producing 245,000 tons, down from 491,000 tons in 1971.
Okay, so if what we are producing right now, Mr. Adeniji, we are still, if you look at the history of Nigeria's cocoa production, we are far ahead a few other countries, even in West Africa, many years and decades ago. So what are the key problems here?
Well, the first problem is we don't even have a data. The 245,000 tons is an estimate because we have a lot of trouble with data. We have, and this is attributed to a lot of corruption in the system. The second one is the government liberalization of the industry in 1985. Without putting the structural system in place, they just dismantled the entire structure and liberalized it 100%. And this one has negatively impacted and affected the cocoa production in Nigeria.
Also, over the years, and it's obvious that you spent many years within the cocoa industry, so we're speaking to you as someone who understands the industry inside out. So what reforms would you like to see within the value chain if we're going to rewrite the entire ecosystem of cocoa production in Nigeria that we've done over the last 2-3 decades that you talk about?
Yeah, we, as Starlink Global and Ideal Limited, who are today the largest exporter of cocoa from Nigeria, we saw these problems and wanted to solve it. One of the areas to do it, one of the ways to do it is this program we have organized at Eco Hotel and Suites. Because we've identified the key problems. One is that we have the federal produce who regulates the quality control of cocoa to also give data of how many tons that are shipped from Nigeria. They have been using 1959 ordinance handed over by the colonial masters. In the world today, everybody uses FCC rules. And we decided to bring in FCC trainers to come and train them. Thanks to the ministry, the Minister of Trade, Mr. Segun Awolowo, and Mrs. Okpe, we will agree that they will allow us as a private company to arrange training this produce so that we can stop the trend. The trend is terribly becoming uncomfortable for anybody who has the interest of the sector at heart. So they agreed, and that is one of the things we are trying to do to retrain this produce. Especially when the government employed these young, about 120 or 200 of them recently, and my warehouse was used as a training ground. It was alarming, and I said, okay, so this youth will also be trained with the 1959 ordinance, which is outdated and is even very embarrassing for anybody to see that what the system handed over to us by the colonial masters is what we still do. And that's why today, Nigerian cocoa is discounted at 120 pounds to the terminal market, while Ivory Coast and Ghana enjoys a premium of between 200 and 350 pounds per ton.
But we understand that Nigeria and Cameroon are talking to each other to also set premium pricing as Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana has done. Do you think we're making any progress?
Well, when you see two terrible people trying to get something out of nothing, what Ghana and Ivory Coast are doing is not going to last. It's a political thing. It has nothing to do with the trading. And I'm sorry to say it because today I'm also a member of the FCC Council, and I can see that the trend they are going, the path they are going is never going to work, because what they are saying is after selling cocoa at the market price, we want $400 above at top of it. And if Nigeria and Cameroon wants to do it, maybe the politicians among us want to do it. But the real people in the business, what we should be focusing on are two things. Increase our production so that we are going to also be reckoned with in the industry. We have the land. The second is to do forward integration, value addition, so that the government can create an enabling environment for investors to come and put in the forward integration. They will add value, will have more money. Because each time we ship out our raw materials, we are shipping out our jobs. And unfortunately, we have a population of 65% Nigerians who are youths. So we are only sitting down on the gunpowder. In the next 10 years, 15 years, if we are not careful, Boko Haram will be a child's play. So what we need to do urgently, and what the government needs to do correctly now, is to see how they can invest in production of cocoa, because if you want to go into manufacturing, you need the raw materials. So we need to produce the raw materials, and that is backward integration. And also we need to do value addition and encourage industrialization, so that even if we are not going to produce chocolate, which should be our main target, by when the economy becomes better, the children will have a taste of the chocolate. That was what Chief Obafemi Awolowo was said in 1957 when he was declaring some of the plans they had during his campaign, that what they need is to develop a taste for Nigerian children of chocolate, so that we can also go ahead and be producing chocolate. And that is a path to go. So we need backward integration and value addition.
So if I may ask you, Mr. Adeniji, what is the most important element that you need right now that must come into the cocoa production in Nigeria? Is it funding? Is it government policy? Is it incentives? What is the most important thing you need if you want to itemize them 1, 2, 3?
The first one is not funding. Nobody will need, the government doesn't need to fund anybody, because what they need is to create an enabling environment. Policies are very important. And in the past 20 years that I've been doing cocoa exports, my family has done cocoa business for 98 years, unbroken chain. So I'm the third in the generation. So we have been around for a long time. The major problem is the policy somersault of the government. No government has, in the past 10, 20 years, we don't have a policy statement that is medium term, in the long term, immediate term, that can take us to where we are supposed to be. Ivory Coast, sadly, in the last 10 years, they've been progressively increasing their production from 1.2 million tons to 2.4 million tons in a space of 10 years. We should also develop a system that will take us to where we are going. Then we can also be looking at integration, the value addition side by side. That will take us to the promised land. The policy needs to change. And the policy makers need to invite people that are technocrats who understand this business before they make their policies. Incentives, yes, it's important. What type of incentives are we looking at here? One is the repeal of the Land Use Act. Land Use Act that has given the government the ownership of land is obnoxious, is retrogressive. People cannot access land to plant these products again in this country. So this will encourage the youth. If the land is available, you don't need to know the governor before they allocate land to you. People can access land, then youth can be encouraged by giving them incentives to go to production. And the incentive that is also somersault is also a trouble. Since 2012 or 2014, there was this export expansion grant that has been marred with a lot of crises. Up till now, the government doesn't know the way forward. They will give people certificates, they will not be able to access it. They will not be able to cash it. The promissory note is a failure. Export expansion grant certificates were all terrible. There are lots of other things that are there that are not really working well. So the government really wants to be very serious and wants to take us out of being the capital of poverty in the world. They need to look at what is easier for us to engage the youth so that our production increases, we can do value addition, we can create jobs, and everybody will be okay. There will be less problem of security.
We have about 1 minute, Mr. Adeniji, to round off this interview. So the government is saying now there will be a total closure of land borders for export and import. So is cocoa going to be affected in any way by this in terms of anyone wants to export through the land borders?
Well, exportation of cocoa doesn't go through the land borders. Closing the land border doesn't affect us, but what affects us is the port. The route to the port is bad. The cost of doing the business in Nigeria is terrible now, very high. We cannot compete with our peers in Ivory Coast and Cameroon because we need to go on water. You go on barge and you pay high. And most of the buyers doesn't have trust in us that we are going to deliver on time. And cocoa is perishable. They need to fix the port. They should stop the politics. They should just go and work. We need that port to start working. We need the road to the port to be working. The port itself needs to be work. There are a lot of trouble with the port that is high shore, but it's not everything one can be saying on and be discussing every day. All of them understands where the problem is. The people they give the port to are not, they don't have the interest of this country at heart. So it's just to make money and move away. So it is a lot of trouble.
Mr. Adeniji, thank you so much. The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer at Starlink Global and Nigeria Limited. Thank you very much for sparing some of your time this morning out of your Cocoa conference in Lagos to speak to us. Thank you so much. We appreciate your coming through.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah.
When we come back after the break, the Nigerian Stock Exchange is sent in a new pricing methodology for stocks listed on the exchange. What is it all about? Part of what we'll discuss in part 2. And of course, we have some outlook on inflation and broad economic data from FXTM.